Law Enforcement Today radio show. I'm your host. My name's John J. Wiley. In addition to being a radio broadcaster, I'm a retired police sergeant. For the latest news articles and much more, check out our website, letradioshow.com. In the Law Enforcement Today show, we'll be joined by special guests. We'll be talking about their experiences and issues affecting law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, their community, and victims of horrendous crimes. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Our page is Law Enforcement Today Radio Show. Check out the daily articles on our website, letradioshow.com. And while you're there, download our free app. He's a career police officer, a member of his department's K9 team. He's also the founder and president of a nonprofit which helps K9s and K9 teams throughout his state and across the United States. And it's coming up on the Law Enforcement Today show. Who can first responders turn to when they need help? Shatterproof at FHE, providing world-class exclusive treatment services for first responders suffering from exposure to trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and or substance abuse. For free 24/7 information, call 833-776-1420. 833-776-1420. That's 833-776-1420. Online at FHEhealth.com. That's FHEhealth.com. Under programs, you'll find details about Shatterproof. Calling us from the great state of Georgia. On the phone, we have Kyle Briley. Kyle is a police officer in Statesboro, Georgia, Statesboro Police Department, the K9 Impact Team, and he's also the president, founder of Georgia Police K9 Foundation. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us on the phone.
Hey, thanks for having us.
It is a pleasure. I am a big dog person. We have big dogs, but my wife and I are really big in dogs and cats and rescues. And anytime we can talk about dogs and canines and working dogs and what they do for us and their handlers and the teams, I'm always game on for that.
Oh, yeah, man, it's a good time. It's one of the best positions in an agency that you can have if you like dogs, of course.
I do, and I never got into canine work. In our department, the Baltimore Police Department, back in the day, I love dogs, but I was not in a position to do it, and I've always been fascinated, always loved what they do. Before we get into talking about your career in law enforcement and canine work, let's talk a little bit about your foundation and what it does.
Sure, man. We started back in 2016. The name is the Georgia Police K9 Foundation. It all started with helping or wanting to help one of our retired K9s in our city that I work for, the Statesboro, Georgia. And his name was Bruno, and he retired medically because he had some hip issues. And typically what I found out was that we weren't an unusual department or agency or city that doesn't fund these retired canines if they have medical issues. So we kind of wanted to change that and try to get some departments on board and to raise a little bit of money to help the handlers that need help, need financial assistance. But from there, we really started to find out that people wanted to know more about dogs in general, just from the training, the imprinting stages of a dog, all the way to what do they do while they're working, where they stay, and they wanted to help. They wanted to help fund agencies that didn't have the funding or wanted to help them if they didn't have heat alarms or vests or anything like that. So we changed it up a little bit and started assisting active teams as well.
Where can people get more information about the Georgia Police K9 Foundation?
So they can hop on Facebook or Instagram, Georgia Police K9 Foundation, or our YouTube channel, and our website is gpk9f.org.
And I'm checking out your website right now. Lots of cool stuff on there. You want to know how you can help out? It's just do a Google search. Georgia Police K9 Foundation is another great way. Do you guys look for donations online?
So we do get a lot of donations online. Facebook has actually been one of our top ones for birthday fundraisers, since they allow that option for people to do birthday fundraisers. I know you have one going on as well. Mm-hmm. Through the cops, correct? Like cops?
Yep, Concerns Peace Survivors, correct.
So that absolutely helps. A lot of organizations has really helped us out a ton. But the General on gpk9f.org, that's helped us a ton through the donation button there and on Facebook and just in general PayPal as well.
Always remember, you get more information. You can search on Facebook, all that stuff for Georgia Police K9 Foundation, or do a search on Google, simply Georgia Police K9 Foundation, and you'll find them online. Very, very easy to do. Kyle, you've been in law enforcement quite a while now, haven't you?
I've been employed with the city for 12 years that I work for. Mm-hmm.
And you are a K9 handler, correct?
Correct.
And do you do training as well?
Yes, we do training every Tuesday. I'm not a trainer and I'm not an instructor by any means, but we have a group of guys that we do some training every week. Yes. And
what type of dogs do you use for? People don't tend to realize there's different aspects of law enforcement canine dogs. You have explosive, handgun, drug detection dogs. You have general purpose dogs, search and rescue. You also have cadaver dogs, and you have the ones that do general police or patrol dogs. What type of dogs do you use for general police patrol?
So our city does not have any patrol dogs. We actually have 2 single-purpose canines, and then we have a tracking canine that's a bloodhound. Our other 2 are a German Shepherd and a lab. And then the county that we're in, Bullitt County, they have 3 patrol dogs, which one is a Dutch Shepherd, one is a Mal, and then one is also a German Shepherd.
The reason I ask is there's a lot of people that want to know, and it's pretty popular. You see growing trends across the United States of rescue dogs being rescued from shelters, being trained to be police dogs, and I think that's phenomenal. Why can't they do that with all of them? And just from my limited experience, a lot of these dogs are trained to be drug, explosive detection dogs. You can use almost any dog, especially hounds, for that. But for the police patrol type dogs, they're generally a more specific breed.
Right. You'll typically see a Mal or a German Shepherd as a patrol, or a Dutch Shepherd for patrol dogs for sure, because they have a different mindset. Quote, we can put that in quotes there.
Yeah.
They just have a different type of drive in them.
Well, I've noticed a lot of people have fallen in love with the Belgian Malinois after the raid, the al-Baghdadi raid, and the dog involved in that. And they're like, I got to get one. Right. And I have Rottweilers, and I always tell people, we love our Rottweilers. They're phenomenal dogs. We've had them for 20 years, but they're not a breed for everybody. And the Malinois certainly is not a breed for everyone. Right.
The Malinois, they're absolutely very high energy. They're not good for every family. I can tell you that. You have to really know what you're getting yourself into with them.
Now, do you guys buy, when I say you guys, your agency or agencies around you, do you buy your dogs fully trained or mostly trained, or do you train them yourselves?
So what we do is we go down to a kennel in Florida. It's called Southern Coast Canine, and there's multiple vendors out there. That's not the only one in Florida, but just specifically where we've gotten our 2 drug detection canines is from Southern Coast. And they are imprinted, and then with any dog that you buy from a kennel, any agency or any handler will tell you that you have to maintain that training. So That's the vital part of it, is to maintain the training. So usually what we deal with is we'll go get a dog that's imprinted, that's got it down pat pretty good, and then we just kind of maintain that training or get it just a little bit better than what we had them at.
Because they're really a team. It's part of a team. And what's the weak link with dogs? It's usually the human aspect.
Right. There's a simple equation. It's stimulus equals response equals reward. I've heard it from top trainers all over the world. And where handlers really mess it up is they try to get in the middle of that. If you just let the dog work. Of course, some dogs need a little bit of help. That's part of the training aspect, but that's where we really start messing things up, is when we try to involve ourselves or our theories or our way of thinking in the middle of that simple equation.
Now, there are advantages to buying dogs mostly trained. And nowadays, quite often, it's a matter of manpower and time. Back when I was a rookie police in Baltimore, what they did was they went to animal shelters and took German Shepherds that were dumped at the animal shelters because they're too high energy. And they worked with them and trained them with their handler. And it was a long, arduous process. And these men and women were off the street for a very long time getting this done. And there's still no guarantee that the dog had the right health, the right disposition, the right temperament. But most of them turned out to be really, really good. However, nowadays, it's not something most agencies can afford to do, is it?
No, it's not. Unfortunately, that's not what they can do. So what they end up doing is they either get a donated dog from a private trainer, which turns out just as good. You just have to find that one trainer that knows what he or she's doing. And then there are the dogs that you were talking about at the rescues and the pounds that have potential, and they just aren't given that chance. But it's that path of least resistance of being able to just go to a kennel and know that you're getting a dog that's already has all that imprint in them, and it's going to perform, and so it's a cost-saving feature on the front end.
We're talking with Kyle Briley. Kyle is president of Georgia Police K9 Foundation. He's also a police officer with the Statesboro, Georgia Police Department in their K9 unit. We're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about policing, especially in a K9 specific way. This is Law Enforcement Today Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What makes Shatterproof a very unique program is it's one of the only programs in the country that first responders can go to that is 100% all first responders. Everybody's in pretty bad shape when they get here. And then 30 days later, when you can see the transformation and the difference in people when they've had 30 days of counseling, working with therapists, working with a psychiatrist, getting the neuro treatment. The transformation that happens with the clients is really humbling to be able to work around and see, because people are getting better here. And it just shows that there's a need for the first responder community to deal with behavioral health issues and take them seriously and offer treatment to people that may need help out there.
For free 24/7 information, call 833-776-1420 or online at fhealth.com.
Are you wondering where you can find more great podcasts? Head to letradioshow.com, click Be Heard, and discover other fantastic podcasts like this one. Also available on our free app, all at letradioshow.com.
If you haven't done so already, please download our app. It's 100% free. We got versions for your Android and iPhone devices, 100% free. You can download them today at our website, which is letradioshow.com. That's letradioshow.com. Be sure to get yours today. Back to our conversation with Kyle Briley on the Law Enforcement Today Show. Kyle is a police officer in Statesboro, Georgia. I got to say this. Every time I hear or see the name Statesboro, Georgia, I think of the Allman Brothers Band and their famous song.
Statesboro Blues.
There's something about that part of the United States. It's a great part of the country, great people in that area. Kyle, you've been in law enforcement 12 years now, correct?
Yes.
What motivated you? Were you always interested in doing this?
I've always been interested in it. I grew up in a family that was in law enforcement. My dad was in law enforcement, so I grew up around it. It was kind of, an older officer once told me he also had a similar situation of where his father was in law enforcement, and it's kind of just in your DNA sometimes, where it's just kind of naturally you're drawn to it and you pick up to it. And I tried to go other avenues and tried to fight against that, but naturally I just went right to it, and 12 years later I'm still here.
So I take it you're in for the duration until your career's over.
Yeah, I don't plan on going anywhere else. I can't think of anything else I would rather do.
There's a lot of misconceptions people have, thanks to the media. And I say the media, I'm talking about news media, social media, Hollywood, about what police officers are like. And part of the reason why we do the Law Enforcement Today Show is for people to get an accurate description or portrayal of what we are like as people. Breaking down your motivation for getting in law enforcement, I remember the old interview, and it sounds corny when you're going through the interview stages, whether you get hired or not. Why do you want to be a police? It's like, to help people. That's what I wanted to do. And
right.
I didn't think of any other answer. And the really good cops I know, that's the answer they all gave.
Right. If their heart's in it and they have their mind in the right place and they're not in it for power or they're not in it to just have a job, then you're going to have really effective, good police officers out there. But unfortunately, as you know, it's something everybody says, every occupation has some people that probably don't need to be in it, and it gives a bad name. Unfortunately for us, it's a nationwide thing, and it's just one of those situations that the good cops need to kind of step up and overshadow those bad moments that are being displayed in the media.
And I like to think that I was a good cop. I had a good career. It was shortened by injury at right around 12 years. I was retired. But I had moments where I wasn't sterling, where it wasn't my best moments. And I always try to tell people, look, don't judge a person. This goes for police. This goes for someone, every other walk of life. Don't judge a person's entire life by 5 minutes of what you see.
Right. Correct.
Because
yeah, I mean, I've had my bad moments too. You know,
yeah.
I probably have my share of apologies that I could give to a few people just based off my attitude or something.
Yeah.
I was a little younger, but once again, it's one of those situations. It could have been that I just got off a back, but there's really no excuse, right?
It happens.
But we're all human, so we all make mistakes.
Generally, my impression is that we had two types of officers. We had people who really wanted to do this job, and you learn. As a rookie, you've got a steep learning curve ahead of you. Then you have people come in for the pay or the benefits, and those type of individuals, in my opinion, experience, usually didn't stay very long, and if they did, they either got the calling or they left.
Right. They usually end up washing themselves out, or they get washed out if they're bad.
Usually they want to get in trouble, want to be forced to resign. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, the in lieu of termination type stuff. Yeah.
And none of us wants that to happen more than other police. It's one of the other misconceptions of the media is that we won't say anything to anybody about anything, the bad stuff they do. And that's not true at all. Not
true at all. You got to police your own. And I'm fortunate enough to work at an agency that is very much about that mentality.
So you've been in the agency 12 years now. How long ago did you get into K9 work?
I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
And that's a big jump from being a regular police to K9 because, well, we'll go into that a little bit later on, but what made you make that transition?
Right. I had a little bit of a transition period. I went from working patrol to working with at the time it was called the Crime Suppression Unit, which was basically a quality of life crimes, like a drug type unit. And while I was on the road, though, I started working with the two K9 handlers that were at the time, and I liked what they did because it seemed like they were going beyond a ticket and trying to find criminal activity, not just drugs, but just criminal activity on traffic stops. And when I'm in something, I don't like to be in it mediocre level. I want to be at it 100%. And if I liked doing that, then I started working with them more. And then I went to the drug unit, which I was able to learn a ton, which I was able to apply working with a dog. So it was a little bit of a transition period from going from patrol to working kind of a drug-type investigation role, and then back to patrol, not necessarily patrol, but back in uniform working a dog. So it was a little different, and but it was an easy transition because while I was on the drug unit, I say drug unit, but it was kind of the crime suppression team.
Yeah.
But when I went back, it was kind of an easier transition for me because I was ready to get out of that, and I was starting to work more with the dogs those whole years that I was doing that. So
did you come from a dog background? A lot of people that are in K9, were dog trainers or raised around dogs, and as part of their DNA.
No, we had dogs growing up, but I wasn't a trainer or anything like that. I just found it interesting and wanted to learn more about it. And while I was working when I was training with the dog handlers, I found that type of training interesting. But any previous background of me being a trainer or anything, I had nothing like that.
I find it kind of odd that you transitioned to canine work, and it's one thing to love dogs and have them be part of your life as pets, but to work in as part of a canine team, it's a totally different ball of wax, and it's a huge lifestyle commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge lifestyle commitment. I don't think a lot of people understand that when they take it on, but we're compensated very fairly at my agency for it, and I'm very grateful for that. I've talked to other handlers throughout the state, and they're not necessarily compensated correctly for devoting this time, and they do a lot of stuff on their own time, and that's really what you want out of a handler, though, that they're putting in the time and the work to make sure that they're doing the dog a good service, and then they're also doing a good service for themselves as well as the community that they're serving.
I love dogs. Don't get me wrong. But one of the reasons I didn't go into canine work was the thought of having a barking dog in my ear for 8 to 10 hours a shift, and then going home with them, I'd be like screaming, "Would you shut up?" I mean, I talk to my dogs all the time.
We actually have a dog in the county that barks thankfully not my dog, and we always give the handler a hard time, but his name is Dutch. The dog's name is Dutch, and he's a Dutch Shepherd. He constantly barks the entire shift. Anywhere we go, the dog's barking or making some type of noise. So that handler has a lot of patience, but thankfully my dog, he's like really quiet and silent. He will bark when he sees other things or gets excited, but he doesn't bark the entire time. So I understand, because I've heard people, when he keys up on the radio to talk to his dispatch, you can hear the dog in the background. I'm like, when he rides by us in a car and we're just standing outside, the dog's barking, I'm like, man, you have a lot of patience. He tones it out now, though, I guess.
It takes a special breed of person to do that. And I talk to my dogs all day long. Not as bad as my wife. She talks to them. She talks to cats. She talks to herself. And then she talks to me. We are talking with Kyle Briley. Kyle is a police officer, part of the K9 unit in Statesboro, Georgia, also president of the Georgia Police K9 Foundation. This is Law Enforcement Today Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. There's only one official Facebook page. What you do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Today radio show. Click like and follow. There you'll find updates about upcoming episodes of the radio show. You can contact me. We also find unique, one-of-a-kind editorials and news articles. That is our Facebook page, Law Enforcement Today radio show. Be sure to click like and follow. We'll see you there.
Flintstone Media has been the digital messaging bedrock of several brands and businesses, serving as a highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm for over 6 years. Work with a leader in the industry and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, Jemmy will lend her experience launching dozens of podcasts and producing over 1,000 episodes, making creating your show a simple and easy turnkey process for you. Visit FlintstoneMedia.com for podcast samples. That's FlintstoneMedia.com.
This is Law Enforcement Today Show. Joining us on the phone, Kyle Briley. Kyle is a police officer in Statesboro, Georgia. Also, president and founder of the Georgia Police K9 Foundation. Do a search on Google for Georgia Police K9 Foundation, and you will get their website. They're also on Facebook and all that stuff, too. We'll talk more about your organization in a little bit. One of the things I think that's very interesting to people, Kyle, is the public has a fascination with police work. And it's been very popular in television shows and movies for a long time. And there's also a lot of negative press out there. But one of the things, I know what it's like to be a cop. I know what it's like to be involved in really bad stuff and really good stuff. But what I don't know, and I think a lot of people don't know, is what it's like to be a cop who's a canine handler and having to go through these things as well. Is it different than when you were working patrol or narcotics on your own before you had the dog?
Yeah, I mean, I think over a period of time, things change a little bit as you progress throughout your career, just because of how you look at things differently and you learn from every call that you go on. So when you include a dog into it, things definitely change, especially if you're working a patrol dog, because you're encountering a lot more like violent criminals or situations that are going to potentially be violent.
And you also have to put the dog in situations when it's a patrol dog. We'll explain the difference in a moment. With patrol dog, they oftentimes go after the fleeing felons. They'll go into the room to get the guy who's hiding.
Right.
And as a handler, I think I'd be scared to death that my dog might get hurt.
Right, and that's where training comes in. Training is super important when it comes to situations like that. Obviously, you can't control or train for every scenario, but I think when the handlers have the proper training, especially with patrol dogs, that they have every bit of confidence in their dog to perform at the highest level, and we're asking them to do something that we don't want to do, obviously, or we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. And it's not necessarily sending in a dog so he can get killed. It's sending in a dog so that he can perform his job and perform his duties and want it to be a success. One
of the big worries and fears I had was making sure my partners, when I say my partners, the officer who worked the post next to me, or our side partners, we called them, making sure they're okay. I was always afraid they would get hurt, especially if I did something. So then add into that component of policing, and you have all the things you can't control, all the violence, all the armed people, all the emotionally disturbed people, and then to be responsible for the welfare of this dog who's got a job to do. I don't know, quite honestly, if I could have done it.
Right, like you said earlier, though, it takes a special type of person to be able to take on that responsibility as well. But the upside to that is that you also have a tool, I say that in quotes as well, that's going to help and assist these partners, these human partners that you have next to you, that may be able to potentially save their life, save your life and their life. So as much as it may be like, oh, I'm worried about the dog and I'm worried about the safety of the dog, you also have this great asset, this great living, breathing animal that wants to do right by you and do right in the call, and he or she doesn't necessarily know that he's helping, save your life or save your partner's life, your human's partner's life, but they're doing what you asked them to do, and in return, that could potentially happen. There's been several cases all throughout the United States and in Georgia where the dog has saved officers' lives numerous times.
They're phenomenal. I recall one incident, I should say, that was a pursuit. I don't even remember what the guy was wanted for, armed robbery or something. He was armed. There's a Bigfoot pursuit. I was involved in the pursuit, and all of a sudden a canine guy came up, and he's like, K9's here, and he let the dog out, and we all stopped.
Right.
Because the one thing we were taught early on is that they don't know the difference between a bad guy and the police running. If you're running, they're going to take you down.
Right.
And that's what we all stopped. The bad guy didn't, and the dog tackled him by his foot.
Yeah. They're incredible. Man.
They're amazing to watch, and they're really not that far different from Fido, who warms your feet at your house. It's the same animal. It's about the people behind those animals that train them to get to where they're at.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand. You work with this dog every day that you work, and does your dog at your agency go home with you?
Yeah, he does. And I don't think I've met anyone locally or within the state that I know personally that doesn't take their dog home with them. I have met some handlers with some federal agencies that have some rules in place where they don't take their dog home with them, but every Georgia canine handler that I know of takes their dogs home. So it's part of the family. So whether they're single or they have a family with kids, the dog is part of the family at that point.
And what's your dog's name, by the way?
His name's Rio.
And would you say what type of breed he was, or no?
Yeah, he's a German Shepherd, and he'll be 8 next year.
So he's getting close to retirement age.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good, if everything goes smooth as possible. As we all know, dogs can, anything can happen to a dog, and it can affect them really quick. But if everything's runs smooth, he should have at least another year or 2, if not 2. I'm hoping to get 2 more years out of him, so he'll be 10, but we'll see. And
Rio is a German Shepherd, and what type of canine work does he specialize in?
He's a single-purpose drug detection canine, so he alerts or finds the odors of meth, marijuana, heroin, cocaine, and ecstasy.
And you would think, back in the day, that places like Statesboro, Georgia, you don't have a big call for that. But that's not true, is it?
No, that's not true. We use our dogs, on average, the 2 drug detection canines for the city, we use them probably each around 30 to 35 times a month. So you're looking at, breaking it down. I think one year I broke it down, and we were using them 1 time per hour, if not 1.5 times per hour, if you want to break it down by average. Of course, that's not every single day. It just depends on the day, but average, that's what it was looking at, like for a year.
And the rest of the time you're not doing that, what do you do?
So I'm assigned to the impact team, which is like another quality of life type crime. And I'm the corporal over the K9 unit and that. So I will, my primary responsibility is to make sure that the K9s are good to go and that we're doing that. So if we're stopping cars and we're trying to find criminal activity, we're also following up on any type of investigative lead that's available that we have time for, but also assisting my supervisor, and he has officers that are assigned to investigate certain criminal activity cases that they're given to look into. So
you've got to do the regular supervision stuff. You've got a full slate of things and responsibilities you have to do daily, and then you have your canine responsibilities when called upon.
Yes.
That's a full plate, isn't it?
It's a full plate, but I think our team operates pretty well, so it's going well so far.
One of the things I do recall, granted, things have changed, laws have changed. You always have constant rulings from the Supreme Court about car stops and searches and things of that nature. And quite often what we do is if we had someone, and you wind up having a reasonable suspicion they've got drugs in the car, and a large amount. And I had one car stopped, and for many reasons, I watched a car that came to my attention. They committed a minor traffic violation and pulled them over. I was talking with the driver. I was a sergeant at the time. And I said to him, listen, you've got a lot of things about the car doesn't make sense. I think you're transporting narcotics, and we have two choices here. I can call for a K9, a drug detection dog, to come up here and do an outer search of your vehicle, at which time we can then search it. If you find what you find, you can be placed on arrest. Or if you've got something in your car, you can let me know. At which time he turned around and said, you got me. I've got 2 pounds of marijuana right behind my driver's seat.
People don't believe me when we go to grand jury and we have these cases. And much like what you did was ask for consent to search. Basically.
And they'll tell you.
People give it to you. People give you consent to search. It's amazing.
It's the craziest thing.
The first time I got it was on what we call like a knock and talk. You knock on the door and you say, hey, we got this complaint about y'all using drugs.
Well, let me take a quick break. We're going to talk more about this when we return. This is Law Enforcement Today's Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Missed an episode of Law Enforcement Today? You don't have to anymore, because now you can listen to it on Podopolo, the free new app that makes listening anytime, anywhere so easy. Catch up on shows you've missed and chat with John J. Wiley right there too. Download for free on the Apple or Google Play stores. That's Podopolo. And John J. Wiley wants to hear from you inside Podopolo.
Has this ever happened to you? You sign up for a free email newsletter, and within hours, you're receiving tons of spam. That won't happen when you subscribe for the free Law Enforcement Today radio show email newsletter. We won't spam you. No more than 2 emails a week. I promise. All subscribers are automatically entered in all future contests. Sign up at letradioshow.com. Scroll down to the sign up area. That's letradioshow.com. This portion of the Law Enforcement Today radio show is brought to you in part by Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. Everyone's welcome at the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page, where you'll find fun, informative, and enjoyable posts daily. Purebred, mixed breeds, rescues, we love them all. Be sure to like the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. This is Law Enforcement Today's Show. I'm John J. Wiley, joined by Kyle Briley. Kyle is a police officer in Statesboro, Georgia, part of their K9 Impact Unit, and also he's the president and founder of the Georgia Police K9 Foundation. Do a search on Google for Georgia Police K9 Foundation. We'll talk more about what they do in a moment. Before we went to break, we started talking about consent to search, and primarily when it involved narcotics, and it's happened with guns as well. And when you talk to someone and they know you've got them, and they know you're on the ball, and you say, "Hey, I'm gonna call for a K9 to come search your car, the outside of your car," and they say, "Here it is," and it's more common and happens more often than people would think.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people. We as K9 handlers we could get into the whole legal aspect, but me and the handlers that work for me or work with me, we will 9 times out of 10 get consent to search somebody's vehicle. And it's all about your approach. It's all about how you talk to people, and it's all about the lead up. And 9 times out of 10, if we're asking to consent to search their vehicle, we already have enough what we call reasonable suspicion. If they deny us consent, that we'll then put our dog out there and do it. But people will give you consent every single time. Most of the time, they will give you consent.
And it happens, I always say, far more often than people would think. And usually they'd say, "You got me, officer. This is what I got."
Yeah, at that point, usually if you do a good, thorough investigation, kind of like what you were talking about of things not adding up, and you call them out on those things and you break them down, they're already at a point where they just don't want to do anymore. They just give up. And
we've also had situations where no matter what you did, they would not give up, and you call the dog, and the dog would do an exterior search by scent, and then they had a sign they would use. The handler say, "This car's dirty."
Right.
And that's the situation with you guys. Without giving away trade secrets, what typical sign is your dog trained to do?
Ours are primarily what we look for is to sit on the final response.
All right. So they walk around the outside and they smell something.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, their sense of smell is tremendous. Then they sit and you're like, okay, this is it. And then you turn it back over to the investigating officer and say, this is where you need to check.
Right. And then usually what we do is we'll go talk to the driver or the occupants, and we'll explain the dog's alert, and what the dog alerts to is the odors, and then we'll try to get them to talk to us a little bit about why the dog would have alerted. And it could have, and sometimes being in a college town where we're at, a lot of what people will say is, well, I smoked marijuana earlier in the day and it's in my clothes, and like you said, the dog's smell is incredible, so it could be in the clothes and we can't smell it, but the dog can smell it, and it could get in the interior of the vehicle, and the overall contamination is that I'm just using marijuana as an example because it's such a strong odor, and I know some states have it legal, but this is just an example for Georgia where it's still illegal.
And then you have things like fentanyl you have to worry about. That's got to be another fear for you as a canine handler, because if the dog inhales any of that, that's life-threatening. Right,
absolutely. Fortunately, we have not had that happen here. We've heard of some cases here and there throughout Georgia, but a lot of these canine handlers have, and not just handlers, officers have Narcan on them now, which reverses those effects and helps save lives. So,
when you say Narcan, one of the things that, and I know that a lot of agencies are now carrying that specifically for the officers and the canine dogs, and they also for people who overdose. People love to argue all the time, well, let them die. Well, you just can't let them die. A life is a life.
That's not part of our job.
No, and part of me wants to say that, but the other part, the reality is when you're on scene and someone is that's the door, you'll do anything to try to save them. I don't care how bad a person they were. It doesn't matter. It's a horrible thing to witness, and I'll be totally honest with you, Kyle. I've been there when people taking their last breaths that were bad guys that were shot in drug deals and whatever, and those things change you.
Oh, they absolutely do. It doesn't, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Don't judge somebody based off 5 minutes. You may have a judgment on this person as a drug user, and people outside of us will say, well, they just, deserve to die, let them die. They're going to keep doing it. But we don't know their whole history. We don't know what just happened to cause them to get here. And if we give them that opportunity by doing what we're asked to do, which is not to let them just sit there and die, then we're going to try to do it as much as possible.
That brings up a great point. Just recently, Shia LaBeouf, the actor, recognized a police officer, I believe it was in Georgia, as a matter of fact, who arrested him and said it helped turn his life around and get him back on the right track. How many times in our careers have we met people that you thought they would never amount to anything? They would just be drug addicted or drinking or drunk their entire lives, and then one day you're right there and everything changes for them.
You're absolutely right. I've been fortunate to get like one or two people to contact me back and say, oh, you helped change, but ultimately, we may have been there to help, get that going, but it's up to the person to want to get help and to do it. So I give them all the kudos back, is that, they had a choice. I was just there we're there doing our job, and obviously it's a good job that we're doing so long as we're following what we need to be following, but it's up to them to change. We have very little control over the outcome, whether it be use of force or them turning their lives around. Back to our conversation with the dogs, working with dogs, especially in the South in the summertime, it's hard enough on humans. You get the soft body armor, you got everything else going on, you get in a foot pursuit, you get overheated. You and I have all been there. But with dogs, that can become a life-threatening situation when they get too hot, isn't it? Absolutely. It can take a 1 to 2 degree temperature change in a dog that could potentially cause death for them.
So what do you guys do? I know you mentioned you got heat alarms. That's one of the issues that's big throughout police departments in the United States for canine dogs. Right.
So we have heat alarms that, just yesterday we had a handler that the temperature got above 88 degrees in the car because they had a little bit of an issue with the AC. And thankfully, the heat alarm activated, rolled down the windows, blew air. We were right there beside it. And the dog wasn't in any distress by any means. And thankfully for the heat alarm, it alerts you way before the dog should be in distress. But so the heat alarms, the handlers have to take into consideration that they need to have the AC on, going really good for the dog. They have other things out there like cooling vests, which you can put on the dog and to cool them down faster. But the heat is absolutely very, very bad down here. So that's something that we have to monitor, even in the winter months that we have.
And those things, by the way, not all agencies have the money to provide that type of equipment. And that's one of the things that you guys do through Georgia K9, Police K9 Foundation, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So you got the heat alarms, soft body armor for the dogs. What else do you guys raise money for and provide?
We provide Narcan and medical kits if need be, but we mainly focus on the heat alarms and the ballistic vest. But we also do a lot with training because, like we were talking about earlier, you got to have the proper training. It's the same with a human that you need to go to proper schools. You need to get proper training so that you can perform well and be a good police officer, just like with K9. So we provide good seminars. We bring in good training. Like I said, I'm not a trainer, but I know what good training is, and we can bring in top level trainers from all over the world and provide it. Usually either low cost, if not free. We just put a seminar on for free where about 35 teams or so came, and they were able to train with some of the best trainers that we were able to bring in at that time.
And none of that stuff is free. All that stuff costs money.
Right.
So your fundraising must be nonstop.
Yeah, so we have really strong support, just like we were talking about earlier with the Facebook fundraisers for the birthdays or sponsors as well, and we have annual events throughout the year. Our biggest one is in June, and it's held in Statesboro, but we have, I think I was looking at our calendar the other day, we have about 8 or 9 lined up for next year already, so that's going to be a tremendous help as well.
And if someone just wants to make a $5 or $10 donation, they can go right to your website and do that, or another agency wants the information to help, they go online and search you out?
Yeah, sure thing. And if they send us a message on Facebook or send us an email, it usually comes right to me. And depending on work, I usually get back with somebody within about an hour or so.
Well, I'll say one thing. You've been very responsive to me. So, by the way, do a search on Google for Georgia Police K9 Foundation. Website is gapolicek9foundation.org. And it links to all their Facebook and other social media presence right there. And if you can help out, help out. If you need help, you need information, contact Kyle. They'd be more than happy to help out and point you in the right direction. Kyle Briley, thanks so much for your service, and thanks for being a guest on the Law Enforcement Today Show. Very much appreciated.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'd like to thank our guests so much for coming on the Law Enforcement Today radio show. The Law Enforcement Today radio show is a nationally syndicated radio show broadcast on numerous stations once a week and growing. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, please do me a big favor. Tell a friend. I'll be back in just a couple days with a brand new episode of the Law Enforcement Today radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.